All right, everyone. Welcome to a special interview here with FlashX. Thanks for joining me.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you.
So, people that don't know who you are or haven't even been under a rock or something lately, you want to care to introduce yourself and just let them know a little bit about you?
Yeah, so my name's FlashX. I'm the Rome player for Ardent Alliance. On January 10th, we competed in the finals of the Vainglory International Premier League, where we defeated Invincible Armada 2 games to 1.
Oh, nice. You've got this like on lock now. You know
Yeah,
exactly how to introduce
yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
So that's awesome. So I guess we'll get to there, but I kind of want to know like a little bit before all this happened, and like first off, like what got you into Vainglory? Like, how were you playing other MOBAs? Like, did this just happen to like come across your plate?
Yeah, so I grew up playing Dota. I think even in middle school was when I first started playing Dota when it was just a custom game in Warcraft 3. Few years go by, quite a few years go by, going to college, and then they released Dota 2.
Okay.
Absolutely loved it. Played it for about 2 years. Well, the first year was just casually, but then I also started to get very good at it, formed a team, started to be extremely competitive. Obviously, couldn't break through to the pro scene. Then in September 2014, I saw the Apple keynote where they highlighted Vainglory for the very first time.
Okay.
I thought it looked amazing. Like a MOBA coming to touchscreen devices seemed absolutely incredible to me. I knew that I wanted to download it, so as soon as they released it, it was available only in the SEA region.
Right.
So I made Apple ID in that region, downloaded it, even just fought through the lag and played it. Absolutely loved it, and I've been playing it ever since.
Right. So you've always had this, I guess, goal to be a competitive gamer, I guess, or it's just kind of like, you're just good at this type of game, and it just kind of naturally happens.
Whenever it hasn't always been MOBAs. Like I've played my fair share of first person shooters too, like Call of Duty especially, and a little bit of Battlefield. But whenever I like really latch on to a game, I'm not the type of person who rotates through a bunch of different games. That's just the only game that I play, and I
Okay.
play it a ton. So I feel like I have a pretty good knack at getting good at games because if you put a lot of time into anything, you're just bound to naturally become good at it. So it's something that I've just put a lot of time into Vainglory, but in addition to having the MOBA experience background, I think that has helped me be a really strong player as well.
Nice. So yeah, you've been playing it for a while now since, yeah, like you said, the launch, and you've seen like all these guilds and this competitive side just explode. Like, has it been fun to be like with this game since the beginning, like since ground zero, and like you are helping shape it?
Yeah, I mean, it really is incredible. I know, like, we lived with Gangstar Sirius over in Korea. We were talking about how 6 months ago, getting first place in the Vainglory League, North American, whatever,
Right.
was $100, and like I remember when tournaments were just for ice. Like
Right. Yeah.
here's 1,000 ice if you get first place. So it is incredible to see. Now we're playing for tens of thousands of dollars, and hopefully it just continues to grow.
So when you guys, yeah, the 6 months ago when you guys won the VGL to get invited and everything like this, that was almost didn't happen, right? That was like a fluke. I think we've all heard this story of like Shin was about to get on an airplane, and
Yeah, so I think it was the round of 16. So, like, it was starting to get extremely, extremely competitive. Teams were a lot more prepared and ready to play.
yeah,
We couldn't find Joseph. I Love Joseph was our jungle, the starter in the jungle at that point in time. He ended up having a medical emergency and didn't have his phone on
okay,
him. He couldn't make us aware of that. So I get on the phone and I'm like panicking, trying to find Shin. I can't find him. I can't find him. Finally, I get a text. He's like, "I'm at the airport right now." I was like, "We need you to play," because I don't think we could have pulled off a 2v3 in the round of 16. Like if we're talking round of 128 or round of 64, like
yeah, maybe.
maybe okay. Um, so he was literally in line to board a plane, playing on the airport Wi-Fi. had it gone to a game three, like had we lost either the first or the second game, he would have been in the air and he wouldn't have played, and we probably would have lost and not advanced, and
Did
we
you
wouldn't have gone to Korea. So
did you
yeah,
guys
pretty,
take that into account when you were picking those team comps? Like we need to pick team comps that are going to
yeah,
win as
yep,
fast as possible.
absolutely. We're like, okay, we're going early game comps. We're gonna just end this quick. Don't get over aggressive, like because you still don't want to just start diving turrets. Like, oh my god, we gotta end this right now. So it's still just do what we normally do, play smart, but be aggressive. And luckily, we were able to do that. So it was pretty close.
That's nice. So then so that helped you move forward, and then yeah, you ended up getting first place there and got invited to the VIPL. How like did you expect to see? What was your thought going into that? Did you even like imagine like I'm gonna go to Korea for 4 or 5 months here and live there and just
Right. So when we won the Vainglory League qualifier that got us to Korea, I didn't even know that that was part of first place.
okay?
I don't know where I was and how I missed that, but shortly soon after, I start getting messages like, "Get your passport ready. Make sure you have your passport." I was like, why? Like, you're going to VIP out of Korea. I was like, what?"
Yeah.
So it was pretty crazy. Luckily, I already had my passport, so it wasn't an issue there. I really couldn't believe it. Called my parents. They're like, they really didn't know the extent of like how competitive was with Vainglory. It was actually semifinals. I was like, "Hey, mom, dad, I'm competing in this for 5 grand. You guys can watch at this link."
Yeah.
And they're like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "I can't talk now. Just watch." So they watched our semifinal and final games, saw us win, and then I had to call them after later that evening. I was like, so I'm going to Korea now too. They were like, "What?" Because I graduated from college, I had a full time job working in sales at that point in time.
Okay.
They're like, "How long are you going to Korea for?" I was like, 6 weeks. They're like, "Well, what are you going to do about your job?" So I quit my job and went to Korea.
Right. I guess it's a weird thing to think. Like the game is so new, and it's like, oh, you're going to Korea, your life has to like, I guess, shut down now, or you have to like change. Like, I guess this is my life now. I have to.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a point in time where I had to decide. It's definitely what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I mean, but there's definitely something to be said about loving what you do. I absolutely love playing Vainglory. Hopefully, we see it develop as an esport the same way that League of Legends has, and make it a legitimate career as well.
So now we're in Korea. We're over there now. I Love Joseph wasn't able to go, and Shin took that spot. He's like I
Yep.
felt like he probably I haven't really talked to him, or maybe I'll try to get him on another interview here. But he seemed like he loves the streaming. He loves doing that, and for
Yeah.
him to like give that up too must have been hard.
Yeah. So that was another issue. Like when I actually flew to meet Joseph's parents because he's very young, to tell them like I will be his guardian in Korea. Like you guys can trust me. They were on board with it. He would have been able to go. Unfortunately, the school system where he lives is very, very strict in their absence policy, and he had already missed quite a few days from the medical emergency that Shin filled in the first place. So finally figured out that okay, Joseph can't go, I was like, Shin, we really need you to come. But I mean, Shin has always been a huge streamer. That is his passion. He
Yeah.
absolutely loves streaming. He joined the team in the first place explicitly saying, "I want to be a sub. I can't commit to the hours of practice that are really required to be an extremely successful player." And he really didn't like the stress of it either. So when I first posed the idea to him, he was very hesitant, not only for like his personal happiness, but he also would have that would also mean that he's leaving Yuma, his girlfriend, for 6 weeks,
Right.
which like that's a long time to be separated from your significant other as well. Luckily, he finally agreed. But going to Korea, we'd never played together, so our expectations were not very high. I remember thinking and saying, "Let's just win one game in the group stage. I don't want to go home completely shut out." But we put a ton of time into practicing in Korea, and then luckily it paid off.
Yeah. So how many hours were you guys practicing? So you shared a room or living space with Gangstars, right?
Yeah, so it was pretty much a house. It was like a two-story house. It was actually Ardent, so me, Shin, and Mikshi on the bottom floor, plus Cole Meek and Gabe Vizel. And on the top floor, it was actually Team Infamous from SEA,
Okay.
plus Iraqi. So typical schedule was 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. is ranked queue. It's just good to practice different comps when you're already at a deficit because if people are just continually running meta or a variation of the meta, it's good practice because you're always playing at a disadvantage if you're using a weaker comp. And
Okay.
then 3 p.m. until 7 p.m. we would typically scrim with Gangstars and scrim with Infamous a little bit too.
Okay.
So pretty much 8 hours a day. Later those evenings we would stream also, which would be solo queue. Sometimes we just goof around and play with each other also. So
Okay.
that was definitely the most Vainglory I'd ever played in my life.
Right. Like it's gotta be tough. Like you gotta really be committed. You have that goal, so it's not you can't get like burnt out on it. You have a
Yeah, like I remember that the first couple of days where we started, I hated it. I was like, "There's no way I'm gonna be able to keep up this work ethic for 6 weeks." But you legitimately build up stamina and tolerance for just sitting at your iPad and tapping the screen
yeah.
for that duration of time. And by the end of it, it really didn't even phase me.
And I'm sure Gangstars they like were there to support you guys and like just let you know how it worked and get
Yeah.
acquainted to I guess Korea lifestyle as well.
That was huge. I mean, they really were essential in our experience in Korea. 'Cause they had already been there twice. They knew where everything was. We didn't have to worry about figuring out how the transportation system worked because they had already done it, and that made things extremely easy for us, and we're definitely grateful.
Mhm. Did you get to explore Korea at all, or were you so busy playing the game like never really got out?
We definitely could have. We had an English translator while we were there, and we kind of asked him, okay, what are some things that we definitely have to see while we're here? And kind of a general sense was Itaewon, which is a district within Seoul, but it's the tourist district. So there's not really anything specific to see there. It's just the fact that it's very if there's anything that's American in Korea, it's that specific district. A lot of the people spoke English there, so it was very easy to navigate.
Okay.
I mean, they had your typical restaurants like McDonald's that we ate way too much of, and just things of that nature. And then the other thing was actually the mall where the esports stadium was located. It was located on the top floor of the mall, and it was the largest mall in Korea. I think it was like 12 stories tall. It
Oh
was
Christ.
absolutely
Okay.
massive. But outside of that, there were other things we could have gone and seen. But because we were on a limited budget as it was, I don't think anyone really took the time to go see anything spectacular.
Okay. And so yeah, say budget. Mob Crush like helped make all this happen, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. They were instrumental as well, sponsoring our team. Thankfully, I got the Mob Crush on the jersey right here.
Would you
They
guys
were
been
huge.
able to pull it off if they didn't come in? Would you brought in funds and like made it work probably, but it would have been a little
It
tougher.
would have been tougher. It would have been definitely a team discussion of okay, this is estimated how much of our personal funds we can expect to pay. Are you guys willing to commit to this?
Hmm.
Because we had never played as a team before, and like I said earlier, we didn't really have the highest expectations going into it. Um, it was it because we actually it took us a while to get sponsored by Mob Crush. Were already backing Gangstars, and they
Okay.
weren't really sure if they were going to venture outside of that. For very fortunately, they did, and hopefully we made it worth their while.
Sure.
But I mean, there was a point in time where I was seriously debating: do I make this trip because it could end up costing me a lot of money, and I could come back
With nothing,
with,
yeah.
with nothing and less money than what I went there with. But at the same time, like going to Korea, that's probably an experience that I never would have had in my life, and I think that that is worth a ton as well. So I'm definitely glad that I did it.
Nice. So yeah, so then the plane and you guys made it through the group stages, and then that third or to face Gangstars there in the semifinals. That had to have been like playing your I guess rivals, but also friends and roommates at the
Yeah.
same time. Like that had to have been just incredibly stressful, and I know they probably, I'm sure, felt the same way.
Yeah. It was by far the most stressful game of the tournament because we had scrimmed against them so much the first 4 weeks we were there. We would probably play 30 games a day.
Okay.
We'd be lucky if we beat them 3 times out of those 30. Seriously. So going into it, we were like, you know what, we're just going to play our best. Luckily, over Christmas break, they released 1.12, and now Shin Kaigen becomes one of the strongest points of our teams because now the heroes, not only is he most comfortable on, but he's best on mechanics, and they're the strongest in the meta. Everything aligned perfectly for us to really perform well as a team, and that's just lucky. But we're definitely glad that it happened.
Yeah, you see that in other MOBAs and games. Like one patch really affects a team. Like maybe the team doesn't adapt to it, or maybe another team becomes just really understands it and knows what needs to happen better. And so
Yeah.
that's why I think all these patches are always important as well, because it changes the game a lot more than people think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you really do have to put in the time to mastering the patch every single time it updates.
So after you guys beat them, was it tough going back to the house then?
It was hard. It was hard. Luckily, like we'd had discussions leading up to that point. They were like, okay, no matter what happens, the second the game's over, we're gonna go back to scrimming because we hadn't scrimmaged at all on 1.12. It had only been on 1.11.
Okay.
Well, they were like, as soon as this game's over, we're gonna go back to scrimmaging to increase the likelihood that one of us gets first and one of us gets third, which is
Yeah.
ultimately what ended up happening. We went right back into scrimmaging because practicing draft, I think, is something that a lot of other teams don't understand how different draft is than playing ranked queue. A lot of teams are like, yeah, we're going to practice. Let's go play ranked.
Yeah.
But chances are you're not going to get the heroes that you're playing in ranked in a draft game. They're either going to be banned away from you or picked away from you because there's just always a certain group of heroes that are stronger than the others. And if that's all you're practicing in ranked, it's going to really hurt you in draft. So
Right.
that was a huge advantage. I mean, I said before they had announced the matchups for the semifinals, I was like, okay, if one of us faces Invincible Armada and one of us faces the winner of the wild card round, we're gonna finish first and second, no matter what. It would have been an all NA finals because
Yeah.
we would have been practicing draft for 10 days leading up to the finals, and that's just something that I think is really hard for other guilds to make the time and get everyone on the same page to practice.
Well,
So
yeah.
it would have been a huge advantage for
Well, yeah,
us.
because it takes, you need 6 people in the private match, and you
Yep.
got the extra time of the draft mode that it, without a timer or a countdown, it can increase like an extra,
Oh,
15 minutes sometimes.
for sure.
Hopefully, if we ever see it get added to game or in game in general, we get like a timer or a countdown, because yeah.
I'm sure there will be.
So then the final game went down, and like, did you guys go in it with, you were scrimming with Gangster, so you had like a plan. You knew
Yeah.
Kestrel was gonna definitely be a pick at some point, or be contested, like you said, like banned away, knowing what Invincible Armada saw Shin do in the
Oh yeah, definitely. We kind of said, okay, Shin played Kestrel all 3 games against Gangstars. That's what Invincible Armada is going to ban. Luckily, that assumption was correct. I think it was without a doubt the smartest play Invincible Armada could have done.
yeah.
Um, I definitely kind of control a lot of the drafting for Alliance. Shin and Mixi are essential in helping me come up with that. But pretty much what I do is I say, okay, this is the worst case scenario for every draft outcome that is in the meta. I mean, people can always choose weird picks that just are not meta. But any deviation from that, and we'll be fine. And going into it, our biggest concerns were one, Kestrel ban, because that's Shin's strongest hero and she's incredibly strong. Two, we had heard that Druid had been playing a lot of Blackfeather and CP Jewel. A lot
Okay.
of people right now have not really seen the potential of CP Jewel. I really think we will probably see her make a comeback this
Okay.
VGL.
That's fun to
So,
play. Yeah.
yeah, she's a lot of fun to play, and I think that some of her buffs went unnoticed. Like her ult cooldown, which was always her limiting factor, CP Jewel got reduced. So
hmm
I'm not really sure. I've seen it in ranked queue a little bit, but I think we'll start seeing it more in competitive play too. So those were kind of the two off picks that we were preparing for. Luckily, game one, Druid sticks with his Celeste comfort pick. He plays Celeste incredibly well.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Celeste is not a hero that can really engage on us, and we just knew that we had the better late game comp in the Sky and Blackfeather in game one, so we kind of forced a fight at Kraken because they just were continuing to turtle at their turret. And then once we had them in the open space, I mean, we took the fight and then ended the game.
hmm
So,
Yeah. So you mentioned the late game. Like I felt like watching you guys play all your games. Like you guys play for that late game more often than
yep.
other teams that are trying to maybe win the game as quickly as they can. Like you guys are okay farming and like let's get our momentum and get the pace of this game going in our direction.
Yeah, for whatever reason, our weakness is our early game. We're not very good at early game. We give up a lot of kills and objectives that we probably shouldn't. I'm not sure why. I watch a lot of our own videos, and I'm like, what are we doing here that always gets us
Yeah.
behind? But yeah, I mean, even since back to October of 2015 when we won the VGL qualifier, that was our strategy. I think we played the single longest game in competitive Vainglory history against Vaughn,
Yeah.
where I think we turtled the base for like 12
it
minutes
was it
straight.
was yeah, that was a long game.
But that's just always been our style. We're very coordinated as a team in team fights, and I think that shines a lot more late game than it does in early game. So
So you're making I guess the draft calls. Are you also the invoice leader, or is everyone kind of making some of those
so
calls?
the way that I prefer Miko, Mikshi, and either Shin or Joseph to do it is they just feed me information like, okay, this is what we're seeing on the map, and then I kind of make the decisions. I think that that's really important for any MOBA or any esport to have one dedicated shot caller. Because if two people are saying two different things, you're just never going to be as coordinated as a team as possible,
Okay.
and your teammates just have to trust what the shot caller is saying in every given situation. I make bad calls, but that's also how you learn. I mean, in game one against Gangstars, where they got the Kraken steal, I shouldn't have called to do Kraken. We were starting to win all of the team fights. There was really no reason for us to try and force it there. Mixie didn't have his double infusions anymore,
hmm
and it ended up costing us the game, even though we were making a late game comeback. Um,
And
but
that
it's situations like that when you make a wrong call. You have to make wrong calls in order to learn how to make the right calls
yeah.
in later games in the future. So luckily, they're very patient. I mean, especially when we started out with Shin, when we first started playing with Joseph for the first time, just whoever the players are, you're always going to play differently, and you have to make the wrong calls in order to figure out what the right calls are, and your teammates just have to be patient with getting through that process.
So that the early game that you guys kind of, I guess, give up a little bit. Like I know you don't get a lot of scout traps, and you prioritize like maybe getting that first item before.
Yeah,
And do you feel like maybe that has an effect? Because I am someone that probably buys like too many scout traps, and vision
yeah,
vision is important, but you kind of are like, well, let's get an item so we can win the fight that maybe they think that they're gonna win.
right.
Like if they get in a comfort, like, oh, we keep winning these fights, but now I have the item, and we're
Yeah,
gonna win.
it's definitely different. You don't see my style of roam out of many other players, if any at all.
Okay.
I mean, you'll be lucky if I buy a total of 5 mines and scout traps combined,
Okay.
mines and flares combined, the entire game. I just think that if I know that I can finish Fountain before the other team, we know that we're gonna win the first big team fight because a fountain is a huge item, especially at lower levels. You can often snowball off that and take a turret off of it if you win that big team fight, or the gold mine if it hasn't been captured yet. So that's kind of my theory in why I do that. I
Right.
definitely think there are plenty of instances where I could and probably should be buying more vision. I face check bushes all the time. That has definitely hurt us a lot. There's plenty of times where the enemy jungle rotates up behind Mixie, and if I just had a single scout trap in the tri bush, she would have been fine, and it gets them killed. So it's about finding a balance.
Sure. Okay.
I should probably buy more than what I should, but I also think getting that tier 3 defensive item for the first team fight is huge as well.
Okay. All right. Good to know. So then I think the in the final game, I believe it was the final. Your punch, man. I think this became its own meme. The one punch flash, the what
Yeah.
$40,000 punch. Like when you were, was it just like I have to try it, right? It's basically when you're in that position. I think you're just like, I have to try to steal this. There's no
Yep.
reason to not try, right?
Yep. Yeah. Crazy moment. A lot like that's what a lot of people are like, dude, your punch was insane. Um, Believe it or not, I do that on a very consistent basis.
Okay.
Gangstarts will attest to that fact. I think a lot of people would be absolutely amazed by how many gold mines or krakens I steal. I don't know how I do it. I mean, it's really just timing. I think that I can measure the enemy's output of damage at a consistent pace, and I can see the exact window where I need to hit it at this point in time.
Uh-huh.
There's plenty of other times where I've done that and it's gotten me killed. That it's kind of a high risk, high reward type situation. I think if someone else was a jungler or a laner, I would say don't do it. Like you guys shouldn't do it because if a jungler or a laner dies trying to get the steal, then your team's in trouble because they're going to push a lot. The
Right.
roam, I don't think, does a ton to prevent a Kraken push. I mean, you're essentially just poking the Kraken very slowly
Trying to
and
zone the other team off and
yeah, exactly. And I don't think that the cooldowns were so long at that point in time where me going in and dying there would have been devastating. They definitely would have pushed two, maybe three turrets off it. I don't think that they would have ended the game at that point in time, but obviously the gold swing that they would have gotten off that would have been pretty big. It was a risk. Luckily, it paid off, and I'm glad that it went that way.
Nice. So were you guys confident going into the game three with Shin on Kestrel that like, all right, we have a pretty
Oh yeah,
good chance of winning this?
we definitely were. I mean, we were expecting an Arden Blackfeather Vox or an Arden Kestrel Sky, and I mean that's what they ended up doing. They ended up it was a mirror match, which was great because that's when you know okay, whatever team wins this is the more skilled team, and
Yeah.
it doesn't really come down to they got lucky and they picked the better comp in this given situation. Shin and I are very comfortable being aggressive in the jungle, and the CS kind of showed from that. We struggled a little bit off the first rotation because I think Druid rotated and Mixie did not, and so we lost the very first engagement. But
Okay.
after that, I think we were in their jungle for the rest of the game, and Shin got like four times the CS wine by the end of it.
That's awesome. I think that was a great series to watch. If anyone still hasn't checked it out, even though if you know the outcome, it's still worth watching. So then you guys won. Like Shin jumped out of his seat. Like you guys seemed like just I guess super excited. Like of course you just won first place. Like is it kind of surreal at that moment when it happened?
It was. I mean, honestly, it's still surreal. Especially like we went into the tournament just wanting to win one game in the group stage.
Yeah.
We did practice scrimmages against Gangstars the first 4 weeks. We went there, went terribly. We thought, okay, we're just playing for third place at this point. But we stayed confident. We were really good at staying positive, even when we do go down. and we're always motivating each other to make sure we're not giving up. We're playing until the end of the game, no matter what. Even if we drop the first game in the series, we still have our heads up. We're like, we can do this, guys, and I think that really paid off.
Nice, yeah. It was great to see you guys, and rooting for you when I could watch the game. I usually watch the VODs because the hours were kind of rough, so it's very fun. I did notice, and I know Doma Furious asked me to ask this, but man, it's super cold in Korea, and you're rocking the shorts like all the time. Like Shin's up there in like a long sleeve shirt.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, so that kind of just like became the thing. I did it one day, got a lot of attention for it, so I was like, I'll keep doing it.
okay.
No, I'm just kidding. So I'm from Colorado. It is incredibly cold here all the time. I think the biggest difference between Colorado and Korea is Colorado's cold, plus there's a lot of wind.
Okay.
That's really what bothers me. If it's cold, um, and dark, like if it's cloudy or it's nighttime, that's when I get legitimately cold, and I'm like, okay, I wish I would have worn pants at this
Okay.
point in time. There definitely were moments where I was like, I should have worn pants right now. um, but as soon as you get indoors on the subway, it's not bad anymore. So
Okay. All right. Good to know. So now that the money from winning, you guys split it evenly, and the team, like, it's probably going to help you guys do other tournaments and like push forward and
definitely,
make this a career, right? Like, this is your job now, right?
yep.
So,
Yeah, yeah. My employer prior to leaving for Korea was like, "No, your job will not be here in 6 weeks when you come back." So I was like, "Okay, I'll have to think about it." And then I thought about it, made the decision that I'm committed to Vainglory. I really think it can become a massively popular esport, just like League of Legends is, and hopefully we'll be there very soon.
nice. So, are you continuing your practice 8 hours? Maybe not as extreme right now, but
Right. It is very hard, and I think that this is an advantage that traveling teams have over the local Korean teams. It is hard to practice that much when you're at home. You have other responsibilities that you have to take care of. You can't ignore everything else the entire day
right.
to practice. Whereas when we were in Korea, it's just play, eat, sleep. I mean, we were very capable of walking 10 minutes to go get some food and then go right back to the house. But we didn't have to worry about anything else. Anything that like we really did have to take care of on a personal level, we either did it before we left or we had people back home helping us out a bunch.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I know I have a dog that I was gone from 6 weeks, and luckily my aunt and uncle's family very gratefully watched her while I was gone. So there's just other things when you're home that you have to take care of that makes that much practice very challenging. Which is also why you see in popular esports organizations who take the game very seriously. They all have gaming houses,
Yeah.
so that they're put in an environment that fosters success because that's all they're doing is concentrating on their job. And hopefully, Vainglory will also get to that point as well, where players are living together and just practicing to that extent to really be successful as teams.
So now with Alliance, like Shin's going kind of back to streaming, and you guys getting I Love Joseph back in there in the
Yep.
jungle and kind of going back to what it was before.
Yep, that's the plan. Shin's passion is still streaming. I don't want to stop him from his passion. If we ever have to travel again and Joseph can't travel, then Shin said he would be there for us. So
Okay.
I know live finals are coming up in about 2, 3 months, something like that.
Yeah.
And if Joseph can't travel to that, Shin will come. And I know that because we won VIPL, I think that means we're being invited back
Oh,
for the
nice.
next
Okay.
one. So Shin might return as well to that. But we want him. We're very grateful that he was able to come in the first place. We want him to enjoy what it is that he enjoys doing, and hopefully that will enable him to take some time away from that to help us enjoy what we enjoy
Yeah.
doing, which is being competitive. So
Nice. So right now, I guess the sights are on the VGL qualifier, first qualifier, which started on Saturday and happening
yep.
today as well.
Started yesterday. Games weren't too bad, unfortunately. The other team we played could only find two of their 5-man roster to play, so we actually played
That's rough.
3v2, unfortunately. But I
That's rough against that first round, especially because you guys I seeded high and they're probably a lower seed, and it's like, well, I'm playing against the champions here, like the best
yeah.
team in the world at the moment.
Yeah, I can't. It'd be weird from the other end of the spectrum. What my mindset would be. I know me personally, I'd probably be panicking.
Yeah.
Like, all right, we lost. See you next
Yeah,
time.
you're already going in, like, even if you had all three people, like, oh man, this is gonna be hard. Like, can we even do this? And then be down a man. Whew, I don't know. So hopefully the games are gonna get better. Everyone should be watching them. Which bracket are you guys in?
We're in the
The
rhyme.
Rhine bracket. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm pretty.
the bracket things. It's very interesting. It should be fun, and I guess see how that all works out this time because there's a lot of good teams, a lot of players this time.
Yep, definitely.
So check that out. Looking forward to cheering you guys on. I'm sure a lot of the North American community here is as well. So very exciting. FlashX, thanks for joining me. This was fantastic. Where can people like find you? Tweet. Let them know when you're tweeting, or do you stream on Mob Crush still? Right.
I'm still streaming on Mob Crush. You can also find me on Twitter at FlashyXTV.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the one.
Awesome. And thanks for joining me, and good luck
Thank
in the
you.
games.
All right, I appreciate it.
Shatter the Vain.